football fans, and welcome to the college football edition of Proline, direct from Las Vegas. I'm joined by Jeff Sadi, who runs Las Vegas Sports Services. We're going to take a look at the 2016 SEC football preview. We got revenge games, we got returning starters, betting trends, because we're doing this from Las Vegas. Going to take a look at the entire conference. First, if you want to get free plays sent right to your cell phone every day, you can just text GAME, G-A-M-E, to 25827. What you get is a free play every day right from Jim Feist, and it's free to sign up. You can also sign up for that at the jimfeist.com website, where you'll find top plays from the nation's top handicappers, including Jeff, as well as sports betting articles and more previews in the NFL and college. Plus, if you want to drop the Proline staff a note, just go to Twitter at Jim Feist Sports. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, let's get into the SEC football preview. We're going to start with the Western Conference. They're back on top here after Alabama won the national title last year in that thriller over Clemson. The SEC had won 8 of 10 national championships, including 7 in a row at one point. Auburn 3 years ago came real close in that loss to Florida State, 34-31, but now Alabama is back, having them, the SEC, once again tops in the country. So we're going to start with the SEC West. Alabama went 7-1 in the conference. Right behind you had Ole Miss at 6-2, Arkansas at 5-3, vastly improved. During the title game, Alabama beat Florida as a 17-point favorite. They beat them 29-15 in the title game. 2 years ago, Alabama beat Missouri 42-13, so they have been dominant. However, they have lost some talent. So, Jeff, in the FCC West, what do we got here? Bama, Ole Miss, or Auburn? What do you think?
Well, you have to go with Alabama again. I mean, it's every year it's about the same story. That they have 6 back on offense, 5 on defense. The junior quarterback Cooper Bateman is going to take over. He's limited action. He's thrown for 1 TD, 2 interceptions, 291 yards, completed 71% of his passes. He was one of the nation's top quarterbacks in the class of 2013, a 4-star pocket passer. In the spring game, Bateman was 9 of 24 with 1 interception, threw for 86 yards, no TDs. It wasn't much of an offensive spring game. The final score is 7-3. Of course, the running back they have to replace Derrick Henry is going to be sophomore running back Damian Harris. He had a good spring game, 20 carries, 114 yards. And they have 3 starters back on the offensive line. Plus tight end senior O.J. Howard and sophomore wide receiver Calvin Ridley, and the number 1 wide receiver prospect in the nation, the junior wide receiver Darius Stewart, at one time was number 1 prospect. So Alabama's still strong on offense, although they lose 5 starters. But of course, with the Crimson Tide, it doesn't make much difference. Every year they have one of the top recruiting classes in the country. Defense was number 3 in points allowed last year, 14.4 points per game. They're number 2 in yards, 258. They have a 3-man front anchored by the All-SEC senior defensive end Jonathan Allen. He had 12 sacks last year. Secondary is loaded with senior Eddie Jackson, Minka Fitzpatrick, Marlon Humphrey, and Ronnie Harrison. So once again, Bama looks like the favorite again, which is always an understatement. The schedule is they opened against USC in Arlington, Texas there, and week 3 they are at Mississippi. They have a road game at LSU. A week non-conference schedule: Western Kentucky, Kent State, and Chattanooga. So it looks like another season for Alabama. They might lose 1 game or maybe 2 games, but they're still the favorite to win the division and also the SEC, John.
Yeah, it's just such a terrific program that Saban is running. Some of the early Las Vegas odds to win the whole thing: we got Alabama and Ohio State at 7-1. You got LSU and Tennessee, both of the SEC, at 14-1, and Ole Miss 16-1. So a lot of teams in the running as far as the Vegas odds are concerned. I'm going to take a look at Texas A&M. This is a program that has been very strong under Kevin Sumlin, a terrific recruiter. However, they have been overvalued by odds makers. Part of that is the flashy offense. They're on a 10-16 spread run last year, 8-5 straight up, but 5-8 ATS. Sumlin's got 6 starters back on offense, 7 on defense, and it was kind of a wacky, disappointing season as they had a 5-0 start and then a difficult finish. However, keep in mind, the Aggies have had 3 of the last 4 years top 10 recruiting classes. They had 3 straight top 10, and then this past off season, coming into this year, they ranked number 19th in recruiting. Now, the offense is speedy and potent. Last year, 27.8 points per game. Wasn't that prolific, 71st in the country, but they had a very good passing attack, over 255 yards per game. That ranked 39th in the country. The running game, 169 yards rushing per game. It's Neil Mazzoni is the new offensive coordinator. He worked at UCLA with Brett Hundley. And it's going to be a quick strike passing attack, which we're kind of used to with this team. Quarterback situation is probably going to be junior Jake Hubenick. This guy, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception last year, 399 yards. They do have another option in Trevor Knight. This guy's a senior. You might remember him at Oklahoma. He transferred in. Didn't have a very good touchdown to interception ratio with the Sooners, though, 14-12. So Hubenick is probably the guy. He did start one game last year, and that was the bowl game, the Music City game against Louisville. They were a 3-point underdog, lost 27-21. Now, the offensive line had a lot of problems last year, giving up 2.85 sacks per game. That was 107th in the nation. So they have a new offensive line coach in Jim Turner. Good news is you got 3 starters back on that line, and you got running back James White, 196 yards, just 3.6 yards per carry. But really the guys to look at with the ground game would be a couple of new freshmen, and that would be Trayvon Williams and Rakeem Boyd. Sumlin is a terrific recruiter. While there are question marks with those skill positions, not so with the wide receiver core, which is positively loaded for an offense that should be pass-oriented. You got 6'4" senior Josh Reynolds. He had 907 yards last year. Sophomore wide receiver Christian Kirk had just over 1,000 yards receiving. Speedy Knoll is back. He's a junior. And Ricky Seals-Jones, 560 yards. That means they're top 5 targets from a year ago. So the passing game should be fine. The defense for the Aggies was really improved by huge leaps and bounds last year. 2 years ago, they were 77th in the nation in points allowed, so they brought in defensive coordinator John Chavez from LSU. What a job he did. They gave up 21 points per game last year. They're ranked 29th in the nation. You got 6 starters or 7 starters back, really only 3 key losses either. Defensive end Deshaun Hall is back, along with Myles Garrett, who's a highly heralded junior defensive end, and linebacker Sean Washington anchors a very good linebacking core, and he's a senior. So this defense should be very good, and the offense looks a little bit better. The schedule for the Aggies, home opener will be against UCLA of the Pac-12. Then they got some road games at Auburn, South Carolina, tough ones at Bama and Mississippi State. Good news is they get LSU at home in the finale. Texas A&M has not been covering games, a 15-24 spread run, and if you like to play totals, you may think with the speedy offense that Sumlin runs, you may think that they're a good team over the total, but the way they Chavez improved that defense last year, they were 8-3 under the total, and that's a trend that I wouldn't be surprised to seeing continue, because odds makers may have the totals overvalued once again for the Aggies, and a pretty good defense. I think this team is capable of winning 10 games, Jeff. All right, last year, Auburn, 3 years ago, Auburn nearly won the whole thing, but they've slipped since then. So where's the truth with this team?
Well, Gus Malzahn is having a similar career at Auburn that Gene Chizik has. He has one tremendous year, and then when he loses a lot of his talent and the other teams adjust to his offense, things go downhill. Last year was they were 7-6, which is okay, but they were just 4-8 against the spread. And right now they're on an 8-16 against the spread run, which means that they're underachieving for the most part. They've returned 6 on offense, 6 on defense. Last year the offense was 76th in the country, was averaging 27.5 points per game. He won 11th in passing, 35th in rushing. So what a difference from that one year when they went to the championship game. 3 starters are back on the offensive line. Senior quarterback 6'5" Jeremy Johnson's back last year, 10 TDs, 7 interceptions. 1,054 yards, plus he has sophomore quarterback Sean White, but he threw for 1 TD, he had 4 interceptions. So the quarterback situation is far from being settled here, and even when it does, we're not sure how good it's going to end up. Senior running backs Jovan Robinson and Rock Thomas are back. Defense, last year they were 69th in the country, points per game, 27.3, 91st in yards. They were 13th in the SEC in total defense, so much for Will Muschamp. He's gone. He went to South Carolina, and they have a new defense coordinator now. Kevin Steele comes over from LSU. Defensive line returns defensive end Carl Lawson, defensive tackle Dontavius Russell, plus senior defensive tackle Montravius Adams. 3 starters are back in the secondary, but this team gave up 45 points to LSU, 54 to Arkansas last year. So still pretty iffy here at Auburn. They might have another 7-6 season like last year. They open against Clemson, and they have 5 straight home games, but that includes Texas A&M and LSU. First road game was at Mississippi State, and they also have road games at Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama. So I think it's going to be middle of the pack again for Auburn, John.
All right, well, I'll take a look at the LSU Tigers, because here's a team that last 3 years, 14-10 record in the SEC. Kind of don't expect something like that from the LSU Tigers unless Miles, but if they're going to improve, they're going to take a massive step up this year. They were 9-3 last year, 5-3 in the conference, but they have a lot of things in their favor. First of all, you get 9 starters back on offense, 10 on defense. Miles was not given a contract extension, so people are wondering, well, is this a big year for him with a lot to prove? They've also lost 4 consecutive games to Alabama, and he's got the team to do it, to hit the 10-win mark and maybe more. It's somewhat of a balanced offense. Have more balance, but this guy is just such a weapon. One of the pluses for the quarterback situation, it's probably going to be junior quarterback Brandon Harris. He was more of a ball control quarterback, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The offensive line has 3 starters back, but it still looks like a very strong SEC unit. They also have a quarterback in Danny Etling available. He's a transfer from Purdue, and he could be probably going to be the backup here, but he does have experience. And the wide receiver situation is really strong. You got Trevon Durrell, who is a senior speedster with 533 yards. The guy averaged 19 yards per reception, and he's not alone. You got junior wide receiver Maliki Dupree with 698 yards, a senior tight end in Colin Jeter. So it really looks like a potent, balanced offense, and certainly another top 10 rushing attack in the country. The LSU defense, we've known them the last few years to be a powerhouse, dominant defense going back the last 10 to 15 years. Took a little bit of a step back last year. Now, they gave up 24 points per game, which is not bad. That's normally what we expect. That was 44th in the country. They slipped from 5th in the nation to 44th. But the yards really wasn't that bad. They gave up 342 yards per game. That was 25th in the country. And it's really a strong, all-around, talented unit. You look at the front line, you got senior Duke Riley and junior linebacker Donnie Alexander. And you got a cornerback situation that is just outstanding with Kevin Tolliver II and Tre'Davious White. So it looks like a defense that should be put up better numbers than they did a year ago. So all around, we're looking at a fine season here. Got a difficult opening schedule. That'll be at Wisconsin in week 1. It's actually at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. That's September 3rd. And they got some games at Auburn in week 4, and they got road games at Florida, Arkansas, and A&M. So it's a very challenging schedule. The good news is they get Alabama at home November 5th in a quadruple revenge game for them. And you know they're going to be up for that one. They have not been covering games, though, of late. 20, 25-1 spread run, just 6-6 last year. So they have been a little bit overvalued. But Les Miles really looks like he has a loaded team. And one other revenge game, not just Alabama to keep in mind, would be Arkansas. They were at home to Arkansas a year ago as a 6.5-point favorite. They got clocked 31-14. So those are 2 games to put in your schedule. So this team clearly is capable of winning 11 games, might even win the SEC West. And if you're looking at a team to go over or under the total, they were actually 7-4-1 over the total last year. But with this great defense, which I think is going to be better, and of course the great ground game, LSU might be a team to look at under the total in games this year.
This is Jim Feist in Las Vegas, and I want to thank you for watching all of my videos. We'd love if you'd subscribe to my sports betting channel. It's free, so why not subscribe? Just click on the subscribe button, and I'll give you 7 days of free plays. 7 days of free plays on me. You'll get a YouTube message sent to you with the code word, and an 800 number. You just call in with the code, and whatever you want, call in, and we'll give you free service each and every day for 7 straight days. And thanks again for watching and subscribing.
All right, Dan Mullen at Mississippi State. Boy, he's been knocking on the door with this team the last couple of years. So how does 2016 look for the Bulldogs?
Well, Dan Mullen's done a good job, about as well as you can do at Mississippi State every year. He's win 9-10 games, and I think that's about all you can expect there. It's been consistent, and every year they win. It used to be when he first started, they would beat the weak teams and then have trouble against when the schedule got tougher, they would lose. Now they're doing pretty well, so that's about the same as going to be this year. Last year they were 9-4 straight up, 8-5 against the spread. They returned 7 on offense, 7 on defense. Of course, the quarterback is Dak Prescott is gone. That's going to be a huge hole to fill there. The offense was 34th in the country last year, points scored 34.4, 14th in passing, 100th in rushing. And this year, with Prescott, he had a lot of yards on the ground himself, so that's going to be another problem. Sophomore quarterback Nick Fitzgerald was limited action, 3 TDs, no interceptions, 235 yards. And he ran for 127 yards. I also have 6'6" sophomore quarterback Elijah Staley, who has a strong arm. Senior running back Brandon Holloway averaged 4.5 yards per carry. He's back. The team ranked 10th in the SEC in rushing last year, and plus they lose Prescott. Seniors, wide receivers, they have Fred Ross, Fred Brown are back. Tight end Gus Wally quit football because he had just had too many concussions, had to leave. Also, they have junior Donald Gray and newcomer Dante Jones. So they're still pretty well set at receiver. Defense was 36th in the country last year in points allowed, 22.8. They have a new defensive coordinator, Peter Sirmon from USC, and he's a former linebacker for the Tennessee Titans. They lost the top linebacker and the best players in the secondary, so that could be a problem there. They still have defensive end Al Jefferson and defensive tackle Nick James. The special teams were weak last year. They're 10th in the SEC in field goals, 12th in punting, and just average in kick returns. That's another thing they have to improve on. The schedule, the 3 non-conference games are pretty much gimmies. South Alabama, Samford, and UMass. They have to play the road games at LSU, BYU, Alabama, and Ole Miss, and they have a big revenge game on November 5th against Texas A&M. Last year they lost 30-17 to A&M. They're on a 27-21 run under the total. Last year they were 7-6 under the total. So it looks like another maybe 8-5 year for Dan Mullen's crew here, and they got he's going to have a new quarterback, but the defense should be. Okay, so I'll go with 8-5 of this team, John.
You don't think they might slip up against Samford? That's not a look-ahead game.
Well, we've seen that Jacksonville State gave what was Auburn last year a run for the money, so you never know about these teams. The trouble with these FCS teams, a lot of times the teams are 40, 50-point favorites, but and once in a while it's a close game where they lose, but you never know which game it's going to be. So that's the only problem. But they should win those 3 games easily, though.
Yeah, it was 07 Louisiana Tech beat one at Alabama. Remember that?
Yeah, you just never know. It happens once in a while, but there's no way to tell when it's going to happen.
That's right. All right, now I'll take a look at the Ole Miss Rebels. Boy, what a job Hugh Freeze has done with this program. Top 15 recruiting classes now in 3 of the last 4 seasons. They're off a season where they went 10-3 straight up, 8-5 against the spread. Very good in the SEC of 6-2, and they look really good for this year too. 6 starters back on offense, 5 on defense. The offense was electric last year, 40.8 points per game. That was 8th in the nation. 334.7 yards passing. That was 10th in the country. And they can run the football too with 183 yards per game. Expectations are high once again for Coach Hugh Freeze, because you get 3 offensive linemen with experience are returning, and of course senior quarterback Chad Kelly, 22 years old, a mobile 2-way threat. And what a season he is off of. 31 touchdowns, 13 picks, over 4,000 yards passing, and even has good legs here too with 500 yards rushing, 4.7 yards per carry. Just an outstanding 2-way threat at quarterback. And he's not alone too. You got junior running back Jordan Wilkins, had 379 yards, but a solid 5.3 yards per carry. And just a terrific wide receiver core too. They lost Laquan Treadwell early to the NFL, but still you get 3 of the top 5 targets back, with Quincy Abadeo with 605 yards, and a 6'2 junior Demario Stringfellow is back, 503 yards. So it's really a loaded team. And Evan Engram is back too. This guy is a all SEC pick at tight end. So this is going to be one of the best offenses once again in the SEC. The defense, just about as solid too. They were number 36 in points allowed, 22.8 points per game. They did give up 388 yards. That was 56th in the nation. But this defense looks solid. You got sophomore defensive tackle Breland Speaks and junior defensive end Marquise Haynes. It's a very strong front line. They pick up a freshman nose tackle in Benito Jones, who is very highly heralded. He could step in right away. Plus, there's a linebacker named Romel Maggio. He's actually transferring from Oregon State, where he was a star player up there, and he will be able to play in Oxford for this fall. So a lot of talent and flexibility on a great defense, including 3 starters back in the secondary. So yeah, they've got a shot to win 9 or 10 games. Again, another factor which we don't always often talk about is special teams play. Yeah, they've been outstanding. One of the top special teams plays in the SEC. Now the schedule is going to be very difficult. opening up against Florida State in Orlando. They're going to host Alabama in Week 3, September 17th. So we're going to know right off the bat in September whether this team is destined for perhaps an undefeated run here, or if they have some slip-ups early, because that's not an easy way to start. And remember, that's a revenge game for Bama, because they were an 8.5-point dog at Alabama last year, and Ole Miss won the game 43-37. Keep in mind, with that great defense, Mississippi State, or Ole Miss, is on a 19-6 run under the total. All right, Jeff, Arkansas, they've been a cover machine for quite a while now under Brett Bielema. Are they going to do it again?
Yeah, I think so. This might be his best team there at Arkansas. Last year, they're 8-5 straight up, 8-5 against the spread. They've turned 5 on offense, 9 on defense, and right now they're on 18-7 against the spread run, going back a couple of years. They were 27th in the country on offense last year, 35.9 points per game, 32nd in passing, 34th in rushing. Junior quarterback Austin Allen takes over here. He's going to be battling sophomore quarterback Rafe Peavy. In the spring game, Allen was 13-19 for 141 yards and 3 sacks. Peavy was sacked 5 times in the spring game. He was just 4 of 7 for 39 yards. 3 starters returned the offensive line, anchored by 6'10" senior Dan Skipper. Running back Alex Collins, 5.8 yards per carry. He left for the NFL, so senior running back Cody Walker takes over, and he steps up. Senior wide receiver Drew Morgan and Dominic Reed, they're back at wide receiver, and we also have tight end Jeremy Sprinkle. So 3 of the top 5 receivers return. And defense, they were 75th last year in points, 27.8 points per game, but that's still an improvement of the year before. The defensive line will be strong behind linebacker Dree Greenlaw and defensive tackle Taiwan Johnson. Middle linebacker Brooks Ellis is a senior, and I think the defensive line will be much improved this year. And also, the secondary has to be improved last year, because last year they finished last in the SEC. But the 2 of the quarterbacks return, Stuart Collins and DJ Dean, and they have a new defensive back coach in Paul Rhodes. The schedule, they open with Louisiana Tech, then at TCU. They have road games at A&M. That game's actually in Arlington, and they also have to play at Auburn, Mississippi State, and Missouri. So the schedule is pretty tough there, but I think that Arkansas could win 9 or 10 games again this year, Jim.
All right, let's take a look at the SEC East. Before we do that, if you want to get more NFL and college football previews, you can go to jimfeist.com. You can get plays from the nation's top handicappers, including Jeff, who runs Las Vegas Sports Services. If you want to get free plays sent right to your cell phone each day, you can text GAME, G-A-M-E, to 25827. Also, if you want to check out some of the latest news and notes, or even drop us a line, you can go to Facebook at Proline TV or Twitter at Jim Feist Sports.